Okay, it's 6 o'clock. I'm going to call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance by Ms. Vice President Davis.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mrs. Davis. Public comment on agenda items only. Any comment from you, Mr. Coscarelli? Okay, you're the only public, so. Okay, revisions or approval of the board agenda. Everybody's had a chance to look at that. Are there any revisions anybody needs to make? Okay, and I'll accept the motion to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Been moved and seconded by Trustee Brooks and Vice President Davis. Roll call vote. Trustee Brooks.
Aye.
Trustee Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Davis.
Aye.
Trustee McGee.
Aye.
Trustee Simpson.
Aye.
Okay, the chair votes aye. That brings us to discussion items. With that, we'll turn that over to Superintendent Hilton, and he'll lead us into the discussion of Herrick Park ILC property order.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lewis. Trustees, I'm bringing forward proposals this evening for the purchase of both Herrick Park ILC as well as Patterson ILC. One proposal is coming from School Incorporated and an investor who is located in Los Angeles, California, and it's coming via an informal letter. This is not an actual purchase agreement, but I wanted you to have it as an informal letter. It is an offer on both buildings in the amount of $60,000. Additionally, we have an offer from Tamandia LLC for Herrick Park and ZB Investments LLC for Patterson. Both of these groups are out of Adrian, Michigan. Each of these proposals is a cash offer purchase agreement with addendums that have been written by our attorneys and signed by the buyers. The addendum essentially designates the buildings as is and would be sold as is to the buyers, and the buyers have signed those addendums. Each of these proposals is in the amount of $150,000 for each property, or a total of $300,000 combined. In your packets, you have all the documents, including the informal offer letter, as well as the other offers consisting of the original purchase agreements signed by the buyers and the addendums signed by the buyers. Finally, included in your packet this evening is a resolution that you would pass for each building, essentially designating me as your signatory should the board decide to accept these offers. Just as a little bit more context, each of these purchase agreements came in over spring break with an original acceptance deadline of March 31st at 8 p.m. In conversation with the buyers, they really did understand it was spring break. They understand that we needed a little more time, and they were gracious enough to extend that deadline to this Friday, April 4th at 8 p.m. Further, these gentlemen are local investors. So finally, and I know you know this, but I feel like it's important to say, we know that vacant buildings do quickly become liabilities rather than assets, and school buildings in particular, vacant school buildings in particular, are notoriously difficult to sell. We also know that the birth rates in Lenawee County are on the decline, school-age children is on the decline, and I do believe that we have two really nice offers on these properties that the board should consider. I'm happy to take any questions. I'm also happy to simply turn it over to Mr. Lewis for board discussion, and maybe it's actually both.
Can you give us a little bit more backstory? Because I know we went out to bid. This is really backstory for you or anybody here. But I know we sent out like a bid package for Herrick Park.
Yep.
And so
Yep.
kind
I
of
can
refresh
speak.
everybody
Sure.
on what's gone on here.
Yeah, so what Trustee Simpson is referencing is a board decision that occurred back in January where we took steps to, well, you've been talking about it since the fall, but we took steps to put together a bid packet that consisted of things like the utility history, any environmental work or assessment work, documentation that we had on the buildings, maps, those sorts of things, including a title search that was a part of that packet. We promoted that both through our website as well as the broker that I was working with at Trim. That initial move to sell the building, we did set a deadline of February 28th. Nothing had come back, and I reported that to you at the board. Since then, these things have occurred.
And that went out on a state.
It did.
What?
Yep.
I don't know where.
Yep. It went out statewide. It's on our website. It was in the Herald. It was out. At the time, it just didn't produce any offers.
So to expound further on that, if you would, I think it's probably important for the public to also understand some of the things we've talked about, that even with the sinking fund money, that is not sufficient to cover the stuff that needs to be done there. And if we get past June 30th of this year, then we're in a whole nother
Yes.
level of financial trouble. So I think it would be good to expound on that as well.
Sure, I can certainly do that. I know exactly what you're referencing. So the first thing that comes to mind, and again, the board knows this, but for public consumption, each of the buildings does have a capital needs of about $1.5 million. That $1.5 million is not, it would be in addition to all of the capital needs on the other buildings that the sinking fund is supporting.
So each building is one.
Each building,
building.
yes.
3 million.
It's probably even higher now
Right.
than it was. In fact, I'd be relatively certain that that's the case than it was, say, in October. So there is that. There is also part of a state regulation that says if the building sits closed for more than a year, in order for us to reopen it, we actually have to bring it up to code. That's going to mean a number of additional, like things like fire suppression, that's on top of that existing 1.5 million for each of those buildings. And then if we were to open it, it's not just as simple as opening it. We then incur the annual costs of things such as administrative support in the building, secretarial support, custodial, food service, bus routes. We got to mow the grass. We got to push the snow.
Anything breaks, we still have to fix
If
it.
anything breaks, needs to be fixed, we would incur all of those. Trustee Brooks, does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yep.
Were the capital needs just for, were the capital needs just for roofs for those buildings?
They were largely roofs, some HVAC work, and then I'd have to pull it up to be exact, but it was roofs, HVAC work, and then some other things that just needed to occur in the building.
So we would also, do both buildings have asbestos or just Herrick?
Both.
Oh,
So we would have to do a fairly large abatement.
Yep.
And you've concluded there's no need for the buildings next school year to where we could kick it off? Okay.
Correct.
and say there's influx of births.
So,
What would our plan be moving forward on that?
Trustee Simpson, I would love to solve that problem, right?
Right.
Because that is a very
That's a
different.
question that's gotta be
Yeah,
asked.
well, it does, and I do believe that there are ways for us to manage growth this fall, as we do have a fairly large third grade cohort that is leaving our elementary schools, moving into the middle school. So if we were to get that extra large kindergarten class, we could actually bring them in and welcome them. I think I would also just say aloud, and I know this has been talked about at the board level in the past. The Tecumseh Public Schools, we do have space. We do have space available. This building in particular was designed for 12, 13, 1,400 children and currently houses roughly 750. So it's a moment for us to be cognizant of that, to also be cognizant of the decline of birth rates, to be planful not just now, but 3 years from now, and then to be fiscally responsible in how we utilize our spaces as we serve kids, which would continue to allow us to grow. But I would love to solve that problem.
I don't think it's gonna happen.
Well, I don't either, but maybe it does.
Unless somebody put something in the water or something.
Correct.
At what point did Patterson become for sale?
I don't believe that the board has actually officially listed it, but certainly we have been talking about it since the fall.
Yeah, I just found it weird that someone from out of state, possibly out of country, had the understanding that we were selling both buildings, that it was that prolific of communication potentially.
It's been an ongoing discussion that both buildings are shut down and the potential existed, so.
And we've had meetings where we had it appraised, and that was discussion. We made a vote to start with Herrick Park versus Patterson, but
It's certainly been in the
I'm guessing
discussion.
somebody went through the minutes of our meetings and saw that. I don't know how somebody from California would get that.
Or they were searching around internet for empty buildings and that listing could have still been up or something.
Yeah, because he does this for a living, and he's
Well, it didn't look like he did it for a living. When you read his emails, it almost looked like a scam to me, so I'll be honest with you.
well,
Not the purchase agreement we received, just to be
No,
clear, but
correct.
one of the other offers.
So, it didn't look real legitimate to me, let's put it that way. So,
any other questions for Mr. Hilton?
I think that covers it.
All right.
One other quick thing before we move on. Can we get the historical plaques out of there?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. We will take care of those items.
Well, and the letters that we had put back,
On the outsides?
yeah.
Yeah, we'll certainly make a list, and we'll take care of all of those pieces. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we want them, but you might.
The
wanna
Historical
do it.
Society
The
might.
Historical
Yeah.
Society will probably want them,
Yeah.
so.
I think the other thing too is, although the timing on the purchase agreements is rather short, is there some way with the buyers to allow some sort of community celebration for both buildings or something?
I will have that conversation. Okay.
And we'll still own it. They got 30 days to close, right? So we're still gonna own it, so we can do whatever we want. If you wanna do something like that, an open house for something.
We could.
I mean, Yep.
Yep.
Something that we,
Yeah, those buildings are very cold,
Oh, I'm sure.
and there's no lights.
Yeah, all right, well, maybe a flashlight tour.
something that we had talked about in the Building Futures Committee, and I'm not sure exactly at this moment what the logistics of it would be, but at that time, we were looking at, we would be the ones demoing the buildings and whatnot, and we talked about the possibility of selling some of the bricks as like a memento
Sure.
kind of thing.
Sure.
And we had also talked about using some of the bricks at the time we were hoping for a new elementary, kind of paving the way from history to our future. So if the opportunity presented itself,
Got it.
that would still be something I'd be interested in doing,
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
yeah.
Did we find that there was a wait list for the preschool currently?
There's currently, as of today, or as of yesterday, there's no wait list for the preschool. There was in the fall, but there isn't today.
Do we know what the current capacity is in the community for preschool slots?
Like in a hard number, no. I wouldn't know what the enrollment projection would be. There are families who would be eligible who just choose not to as well. And the enrollment and placement for GSRP actually runs through the ISD. That is in process. We are not full yet for the fall, but it is in process.
But, to the previous space discussion, how many classrooms are there at Patterson?
14.
How many classrooms are there at Herrick Park?
As long as you're not quoting me, I think it's 12. They're really close.
So I think one question is, because we're not seeing the increase in enrollment maybe to kindergarten, could we have enough students from the preschool concept or something else to fill those rooms and pay the operational costs of those buildings to where we could say we're opening one of the buildings by June 30th?
So Kelly's over here, and she can help me if I get this wrong. Preschool is essentially cost neutral, and given that it's already in an existing site, that's, correct me if I'm wrong, that is what makes it cost neutral.
It doesn't, sorry, one more question on preschool. Actually determining the capacity is somewhat dependent on which ages come into the preschool, right? There are different
100%. Yes.
requirements or whatever for 3s and 4s.
Yes. Yes. And then there's staffing requirements as well that is generally 1 to 8, but you can go 3 for every 20. That decision actually gets 3 staff for every 20 children, but that decision actually gets made in tandem with the ISD.
Isn't there some additional things that we would have to upgrade for it to be a preschool, though?
There certainly is. There are a number of requirements. Lowering toilets, you have to lower the sinks, you have to lower the hand towels that are on the walls, you have to fence in playgrounds, and you have to have playground structures that are actually age appropriate to 3 and 4-year-olds. I found out that the hard way in one of my former positions. And then that's when I first had my first view into the fact that nice playground equipment installed can be upwards of $80,000 for one piece.
Oh, yeah.
And so the equipment that we have, with the exception that's what's in that little fenced-in area at Sutton, the preschoolers cannot actually play on anything else. So if we were to open a building for that, we would have to incur all of those additional expenses.
So as part of my campaign, I had met with the director, Sean.
Yep.
And had a real nice meeting with him and went through some of this and walked through. She is tight on space. We all know that, very tight. It is neutral, budget neutral. So whatever they get, they have to cover with their own costs. It doesn't come out of our budget.
Yep.
And I know she said at the time, she had looked at Patterson, or asked the school to look at Patterson. And I think what she quoted, and I may be off a little bit, but I see $1 million to $1.5 million to upgrade the school for Patterson to handle the preschool classes. That doesn't include the roof repairs or anything else. Right. So knowing that, I think it's important. We have an opportunity to grow, but with that information, I don't think Patterson's the right choice.
Right.
So through my thoughts and my research, you hate to give up space, but the space we have is going to be cost prohibitive for us. And we have space throughout the community to support what we need in the near future and then some. And we have, as board members, I think that's what we have to do and make sure we educate the community that there is plans and backup, and we're not making a rash decision. We've spent some time, and we hate to give up the tradition, but it is the right decision at this point.
Well said.
Do we have any further details on the plans from the buyers?
So I don't want to speak for them, but what I understand is that they have the intention of turning the properties into housing. That, again, I don't want to speak for them, but what I understand in this moment is that the intention is to renovate the buildings for apartment use, housing use, do things like taking the gyms and turning it into fitness facilities. But I'm hesitant because that's what I understand, and I don't have any reason to. I'm not hesitant because I doubt it. I want to be clear about that. I am hesitant only because they should be the ones speaking to that.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed they're not here for that. I'm a little concerned that there might be something like the former admin building where, for whatever reason, they can't get the millions of dollars of funding or whatever is required, and those properties just sit. and could have been offered to someone who was prepared to handle that kind of thing.
It was sold to a company that does that kind of thing. That was exactly what they did. And then they opted out. So that was nothing that we could have helped.
And we're
I'm just
receiving-
speaking about the future of Herrick Park and Patterson, not
Well,
necessarily the admin building.
you
But I just didn't
referenced
see that in
that.
the, I didn't see that in the agreement as far as, covering that thing that might happen.
It could, right? There is no crystal ball that I would have or the city would have. I think that one of the differences that at least sticks out for me is with the sale of the Ottawa Street building, that was to a group that was not local. I believe they were Metro Detroit somewhere. Whatever happened there, I don't know, and I won't speculate. The difference here, though, is that these two gentlemen are local. They live here. They have businesses here. They have reputations here. So it signals to me a different set of circumstances between the two. And I know I'm saying it directly, but I'm saying it directly to then say I don't have any reason to believe. I don't have the crystal ball, but I don't have any reason to believe that what happened then would occur again.
And ultimately, regardless, if it sits vacant under our books or under their books, I'd rather it be under their books.
Matt, I think also there was some information that they did meet with the city already as well to kind of
They did.
lay out their ideas and plans, so they've got some level of pre-thought here, other than, that's still a big chunk of money to go out with.
It is.
Right.
And-
Yes.
Knowing that you've got to put the same amount of money into it we'd have to.
Right.
They have to know that. I mean, the one guy works for JC Mechanical, he's been in these buildings for years.
Right, so I
It's not
thought
like
that
we-
was nice that they met with the city and got some feedback too, where the other offer that came in on paper, I didn't feel
Yeah. Yeah.
was in the background.
Trustee Miller, I think that's another really good
Yeah.
piece of the story here, because I also know that meeting occurred before their offer. And to what President Lewis is saying, one of these gentlemen has literally been in the tunnels like they know the buildings. They have a sense
And
of.
it's not like we've been quiet about it.
Right. Right.
We've been kind of shouting from the rooftops, like, these are the issues with the building, so.
Right.
Anybody else?
All right.
No other discussion, we'll move on to action items. Let's begin with Herrick Park Intermediate Learning Center property offer.
So, I have a couple of resolutions to read. They're a little lengthy, so bear with me.
Okay.
A special meeting of the district's Board of Education was held within the boundaries of the district on the second day of April 2025 at 6 p.m. The meeting was called to order by Greg Lewis, Board President. Present is Tim Simpson, I can say it. Lynn Davis, Greg Lewis, Heather McGee, Becky Brooks, and Darren Miller, absent Jacob Martinez. Whereas the district has now received an offer from ZB Investments LLC, the purchaser, to, apparently Herrick Park was put on first, so sorry. Not Herrick Park, Patterson.
Gotcha.
ZB Investments LLC, the purchaser, to purchase real property commonly known as the Patterson Intermediate Learning Center located at 401 North Van Buren Street within the city of Tecumseh, Lenawee County, Michigan. And whereas the board has determined that it would be in the best interest of the district to sell the property to the purchaser under the terms and conditions contained in the purchase agreement and addendum 1 attached hereto and made a part hereof as attachment 1. Now therefore be it resolved that the board hereby authorizes the sale of the property to the purchaser. The board authorizes and directs Matthew Hilton, the superintendent, or his designee, to execute the purchase agreement substantially in the form of attachment 1, and to make any revisions to the purchase agreement not inconsistent with this resolution, and to take any other action to sell the property, including signing closing documents, all subject to review and approval by the district's legal counsel. Number 3, all resolutions and parts of resolutions insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this resolution, be and the same, are hereby rescinded.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to allow Mr. Hilton to act as our designee and going forward with these purchases. Are there any questions? Okay, roll call vote. Trustee Miller,
Aye.
trustee Davis,
Aye.
trustee McGee.
I'm sorry, is this for the approving the sale or just that Mr. Hilton would be the signer?
All the above.
It's both.
Both, okay.
Okay.
Nay.
Trustee Simpson,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. And trustee
Yeah.
Brooks,
I also
sorry,
vote
trustee
aye.
Brooks. Okay, gotcha, sorry, my
It's all right,
apologies.
I'll put it out there. I don't
That's
have to-
good,
I don't have to-
okay. That was supposed to be Herrick Park, it was Patterson, so this time let's have the action item for Herrick Park ILC.
You got it. Same verbiage, different address. A special meeting of the District's Board of Education was held within the boundaries of the district on the second day of April, 2025 at 6 p.m. The meeting was called to order by Greg Lewis, Board President. Present members, Tim Simpson, Lim Davis, Greg Lewis, Becky Brooks, Heather McGee, Darren Miller, absent, Jacob Martinez. Whereas the district has received an offer from Timandia LLC, the purchaser, to purchase real property commonly known as Herrick Park Intermediate Learning Center, located at 600 Herrick Park Drive, within the city of Tecumseh, Lenawee County, Michigan. And whereas the board has determined that it would be in the best interest of the district to sell the property to the purchaser under the terms and conditions contained in the purchase agreement and addendum number 1, attached hereto and made hereof as part attachment 1. Now therefore be it resolved that the board hereby authorizes the sale of the property to the purchaser. Number 2, the board authorizes and directs Matthew Hilton, the superintendent, or his designee, to execute the purchase agreement substantially and in the form in attachment 1, and to make any revisions to the purchase agreement not inconsistent with this resolution, and to take any other action to sell the property, including signing closing documents, all subject to review and approval by the district's legal counsel. Number 3, all resolutions and parts of resolutions insofar as they conflict with the provisions of this resolution, be and the same, are hereby rescinded.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to, for the sale of Patterson Elementary, Herrick Park Elementary, and Superintendent Hilton can act as the sales agent for the board. Okay, so roll call, any questions on that? Okay, roll call vote, trustee Davis,
Aye.
trustee McGee,
Aye.
trustee Simpson,
Aye.
trustee Brooks,
Aye.
trustee Miller,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, moving along to public comment. Any public comment for any reason? It's a short one.
You okay? I wasn't sure because I can't hear you guys very well. Some of you have these, but I don't think you use them to their best utility. Just putting that out there, okay? All right. So, being a Tecumseh resident and living directly across the street from Patterson, I have a little investment in this, and I'd like to speak to Trustee McGee's point when she was talking about a previous experience, I believe, right? And you can have people who are brought in who are supposed to be experts, and then I think Trustee Brooks was saying, well, that's what they do, you know, in terms of these people that submit this kind of thing. It doesn't always work that way. I give you Bonner Hills. It was an administrative nightmare. And these are people who know what they're going to be doing, and they were supposed experts, so it's incumbent upon you to make sure. There's safeguards and there's safety rails you can put up in place to make sure. Insofar as Trustee Brooks' comment on whether it's on your books or their books, you'd rather have it on their books, here's an option. How about it's not on the books? How about something gets done with it? Again, there's guardrails and safeguards you can put into place to make sure something like that doesn't just sit empty and become a blight across the street from my house. You know, it's a bummer that we can't have a preschool there. I get it if it's cost prohibitive and that's not going to work. It would be such a nice feeder system since what we're losing, and what did I hear last time, 38 kindergartners that aren't committed to Tecumseh, what a nice feeder system, a nice preschool would be to bring those kids in, and potentially from out of the area as well. If it was a nice preschool, feed them into our system, because as I mentioned before, this should be, in the county, the #1 school. And I don't think we're there yet, so we've got some work to do. My last thing I want to say quickly is I hope you're working with the city. You're not experts in this realm. Some of you might have some experience in the business world, some of you don't. But in terms of this kind of business, this is a different animal. The city works with this all the time. I hope you're working with the city. They've got a ton of experience, and they probably have some very good input in order to see what goes in there and how you can put those safeguards in place. I know that there are zoning things that anybody would have to commit to. I get that, but I'm just talking about the experience that the city would have, and I'm sure that they would be open to maybe partnering with you and helping to turn that into something fantastic if we can't have it as a school. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, open up to board member comment.
I'd like to thank you for your public comments and for being here and participating. So thank you very much for that. I do feel that the agreements are lacking a few things, including the signage addendum and some of these safeguards. So, I mean, everyone just voted on this, so I don't know if those can be added to the addendum in there, because the only thing we're allowed to remove are basically things that we can pick up and move. So when I was visiting there, we talked about maybe taking the bulletin boards or whiteboards or something like that. Those are somewhat affixed, so those are probably off limits under that scenario. Not that we would want to, I don't know, but just things like that. And I would like to see a formal plan and presentation put in place for, I'll call it student housing, so where we're going to put kids and how we can actually grow. I have been sitting in board meetings, I don't know, maybe 3 years or so, and have attended actually more board meetings than the people sitting at this table. So
Excuse me?
yeah, because I have actually attended all the committee meetings for like the past 3 years where that's a
Those are not
limitation.
board meetings.
Okay, well, we can get into specifics, but I'm just suggesting that I haven't
A point
heard-
of order. We function as one unit with 7 votes, tonight 6 votes. I would suggest that we keep comments between board members to a minimum and allow Mrs. McGee to finish her comments. But I would like to remind all board members that we do function as one body, and so let's all make sure that our comments are respectful to the people that were elected by the constituency to sit at the board table. All the people elected to sit at the board table. We are one board.
Thank you for your comments. And the reason I was making that statement was because I haven't heard this. I have been asking for this as a member of the community and a member of this board to have a formal plan in place to grow, which is going to be the only way that we are going to be able to be in the black. We cannot cut enough. Cutting these 2 buildings is not going to save us. Getting an extra $300,000 is not going to save us. We need to come up with a plan that keeps us in the black and keeps us as a school of excellence in the county and beyond. I would also like to see an actual formal plan and presentation by the buyers so that we can I guess show to the community that this was a prudent decision. And maybe there's some other plans that we can do with the city or with amongst ourselves to make this a great thing for the community. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would just like to offer up the opportunity, Trustee McGee, for conversation with you about that plan for growth. I think that we have done a number of things to begin promoting ourselves. We are seeing return on that investment. I would just remind the entirety of the board that the county is down about 30% in its birth rates. We have the research-based projected enrollment data. We know we have space. It's going to require some decisions, but certainly would want to hear more from you about specifics with those ideas of growth.
Well, I'd like to say, I think this is a very good deal for the schools. You know, and those are nice lots, so whoever, you know, they're gonna, I assume, redevelop them or do something with them. I mean, it's nice pieces of property in town. You know, when you start putting, I don't even think we can put this into contracts. From what I remember talking to the lawyers before, is when you sell something, you can't say, well, you gotta do this. You know, we're not the city. We can't force them to do that. It would be like trying to sell your house and saying, well, you can't paint it. You only can paint it this color. Well, who's gonna buy it, you know? So, but this is a good deal for the school district. We have a lot of space in these buildings. 6 years ago, before I was on this board, we were out of space. Okay, we were out of space. Well, we weren't out of space once I found out we got in here. We were not out of space. So we had plenty of space, and you know, people aren't having as many kids now. I wish we could encourage them to do it, but they're not, and it's expensive. It's expensive to have kids, and both parents are working now. It's a different economy than it was 20, 30 years ago. So, and I don't foresee that changing much in the near future. So I think it's a good deal for the schools. I think it's a good deal for the city. It's going to go on the tax rolls, so it's good for the city. It's good for us, and hopefully they redevelop it and the tax value goes higher, and it, you know, and if they make it into house, or I don't know what they're doing with it, but you know, hopefully we get the 18 mills from the non-homestead. So, yeah.
And I would echo what Tim said. I mean, Tim and I are both in business. It is a good deal for us. I mean, 300,000 isn't gonna make or break us, but it certainly, I mean, that'll help with the math curriculum next year. I mean, you know, those are the kind of things that we could certainly utilize, but it is not going to make or break us. As far as the buildings themselves, we already kind of had them off our books in our brains for when we did the sinking fund. So that 1.5 million per school wasn't even in our plan, let alone adding another couple million to bring it up to code for a preschool. Initially, I loved that plan. I thought that was a great plan, but when you start looking at it logistically and financially, it's just not. So I think, to echo Tim, this is a great deal for us. It's a great deal for the community. I hope that they do what they are looking to do. I was really hopeful that the other company was gonna do that, because senior housing on a sliding scale would have been awesome, but here we are.
I think when you look back at the picture, in May of '22, we were 90 votes from passing the millage to build one new elementary school, but it didn't pass. Inflation went crazy. We went in the general election in the fall of '22, and it got stomped the second time. So the community said, we don't want to do that, and we redirected our efforts to what we could do. We knew we could cut a couple of buildings out based on the size that we had. That's what we thought at the time, reaffirmed by Superintendent Hilton when he went out and hired the company to come out and do the legwork. We're aware that you can't you can't cut your way to prosperity, you can't spend your way to prosperity. You've got to find that balance. I think when going out and pursuing the sinking fund, which through the collective efforts of the board and especially Superintendent Hilton to get that passed, first time we've ever had a sinking fund, we've got that balance right now where we're increasing our spending because the community bought into that, and I think there's a degree of trust there that, and we owe that to them to spend that money wisely. But we're gonna have to Mrs. McGee's point, we're gonna have to continue to find ways to expand and do it the right way, do it in a way that the community is happy with. But the community's also got to understand that we can only work with what they give us. I mean, if we don't have more revenue than you have to right size, it's just that much more difficult. So again, can't cut your way to prosperity, can't spend your way to prosperity. I think at this point, we're on a good track to do that. And my last comment was, despite all this stuff that's not much fun, the girls' basketball team won a state championship the first time since 1974. I know I'm the only one at the table sitting here that got to see both state championship games. There's others, but I only.
Yeah, I was still cooking.
I'm the only one at this table who can say that. And then today, the Equations team. Equations is a countywide math program or tournament that's run here. Tecumseh High School today. The Tecumseh High School number 1, number 2, and number 3 teams won first, second, and third place for the 11th straight time in 11 years. Nice. So congratulations to them. The middle school at the 7 levels won in 6 of those levels and was second in the 7th. And one thing that we have going against this, because I helped Mrs. Garner last year coach that team, is that we are the only middle school in the county whose kids don't get to practice that stuff during the school day. Everything we do is after school, so a lot of our kids who participate in that are also in athletics or mainly athletics after school, so they can't go to equations practice and go to whatever other practice they have as well. So I did speak with Mrs. Garner today when she told me that how they did. She put in a strong plug for the Reveal Math program, because she said ever since she's got that, and this is the second year she's had 8th graders who have used Reveal. She says she even has the kids, not algebra kids, but math kids are already into algebra because the kids who are motivated can work ahead, and just by the fact that they're in there, and that's a decent sized selection of the class, other kids are picking that up as well. So that's just gonna help them that much more when they take algebra as a freshman. They'll have that much more as a starter or refresher when they come in. So
Nice.
as much as we had the basketball team won a state championship, our equations team, our math program here rocks it.
Did you
we've had
say
the
we got
Krigstar
first, second,
champions.
and third?
What's that?
Did you
First,
say
second,
we
and
took
third.
first, second,
We
and
took
third?
up for 3 teams.
Swept it.
Well, I'd say that makes us a pretty awesome district.
It does, and you think about it, 2 of the last 3 years, our kids have finished 1 and 2 in the Trigstar competition, and it really cycles around just a very dynamic leader for the math program and a great math staff that supports him and believes in what he's doing, and it doesn't get the print in the papers like sports does. It has its own dedicated section to it.
Right.
But it's just as impressive.
Didn't we just take the chemistry one too?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep, good things going on here educationally.
Yeah.
Can I, because my point of order comment was not my board comment. It's very hard for a community of this size to have to give up buildings with such history. And I hope that we can find a way to honor those buildings in some form or fashion moving forward. I feel like I tell this story a lot. When we moved from Cincinnati to this area, we interviewed 9 school districts in the area. And we chose Tecumseh for a lot of reasons. I'm just going to put this out here. I do not think Tecumseh Public Schools needs to be saved. There are definitely things that we can do better, and we should always be doing better. I have a 30-year career, Mr. Miller knows where I work, where, partially because he can see it on my sleeve, and partially because he just knows, where that continuous improvement is very important, and I think we can grow. How much we grow is constrained, though, however, by the realistic situation that our state and region see themselves in, and anyone that you would talk to in the state, from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation or the Michigan Department of Education, would share those same concerns. I want to make it very clear that I think Superintendent Hilton is doing an excellent job in managing the resources that we have available to the district, understanding the future resources from the state and other funding sources, and has been, I think, more expedient and done more than other superintendents I have worked with in a much shorter time to put us on a track towards growth that we can expect in the climate that we have, and to building a foundation for us to make us stronger in the future. But we are a strong district. We are strong academically. We are strong from a fiscal management standpoint. Does that always come out in the numbers? No. There are a lot of reasons for that that I will not detail here this evening, that are related to speaking with the city and the county. But I will say that I think that Tecumseh Public Schools is on a trajectory to grow and to improve and to continue the positive tradition that this district has provided to this county and this region.
Thank you very
Absolutely.
much. Anybody else?
I'll just make a short closing comment. I remember back when before I got on the board, we were sitting up here and a couple community members came up and said, you gotta look internally. It's a community, it's not the schools, it's not the buildings. And I think that's what Mr. Hill is doing, is he's taking a hard look at all the things and cleaning some things up and getting us on the right path. And I think that's really exciting. I think the community should be excited. They're not easy decisions. I thought about this dear and hard. A matter, I think, a month ago, I was the one that brought up, when we didn't get any bids, that maybe we donate it to the city so that we could do something with the property, because empty buildings are a liability. Schools don't
Exactly.
run empty buildings. And it's not what we're good at. So I think getting a local investor in and having the opportunity to see that redeveloped is the best opportunity we have right now, and I don't think it's gonna get easier. You heard the news today and the last few days, if you're involved, the tariff situation, everything is gonna shake things up a little bit. It's gonna get hard for a little bit before it gets better. And it wouldn't have been any easier for us to do something with those buildings. So, is it what we wanted? No, I think we can all say that. It's a lot better than what we had a month ago. And I do agree with Mrs. McGee that we do need to think about the growth in the future and how to do it. I've heard that there are some plans, and I think as we get through this, we can start looking at that and start thinking about it. I'm excited because I do think we're gonna grow, or at least stabilize, and not be the shrinking school in the community. So I hope the community understands that it wasn't a knee-jerk reaction. It's been a lot of discussion for a long time prior to me being on the board, and I'm confident that it is the right decision at this point. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Darren.
Okay.
Anybody else? If there's nothing else, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. No roll call vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Dismissed.